Hello, Chairman. I've switched.
Sorry, Lane.
Sorry, I've basically switched it off and switched it on again, and it does appear to be live streaming again.
Okay, so we can carry on.
Yes.
Okay, then, so we go to the vote, and we're voting on key amendments to the 2021 budget. Over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chairman.
I think Chair Councillor Fry wanted to just finish off what he was saying.
Oh, sorry, I thought he'd finished. Councillor Fry. Councillor Fry.
Thing muted itself again. I apologise.
Yeah.
I was
Sorry,
just
I
saying
thought-
several other speakers, and I would like them to, I'll be quick and I'll have to summarise it a bit. But yeah, I think the important thing is that many people touched on is the repairs and maintenance budget. And I'm advised, obviously, I was immediately aware that this could give us problems, and I asked the property team to tell me what was involved. And specifically, we'd be here all night, but more generically, it involves annual servicing for CCTV at various locations in East Lindsey. So that's something that will take a hit. Suspension of pest control actions at a number of locations. External decorations of public realm assets at numerous locations throughout the district. Patch repairs to off-street car parks. And that is unless they constitute a health and safety risk, in which case they will be repaired. And internal building decoration programme, which would be suspended throughout the district. So that's my knowledge of the detail of the areas in which we'll make savings on repairs and maintenance. And I think that applies to several speakers. Yes, I think we really need to work with the people in the district who are suffering hardship, and we'll see how we can do that. And I do think that the homelessness issue, a lot has been done, and we need exactly to keep the foot on the pedal. Councillor Howard, you also talked about repairs and maintenance, so I hope the indication I've given you, and I agree that it can come back to bite us, and indeed, property team are indicating it'll take 3 years to catch up, and I think that will bite us. Keeping the towns in good order, yes, I think that's extremely important for the businesses and so on, which is really in some ways why we're trying to keep, well, first of all, we're going to deliver on our capital programme, and there are various elements in that that are important in this. And also the market towns funding is very important, I think. Councillor Parkin, yes, market towns are also important. Yes, I've just touched on that. Yes, I think we do. Well, we do have a more sophisticated model of funding, and we can look at it, and I'm very happy to do that. I'm also very happy about the 3-month review, and I'm quite happy for that to go to scrutiny. Again, Councillor Brooks, you referred to the deferral of repairs and maintenance, and I've sort of covered that. In terms of the 300k, I'm not sure. We really do strongly believe that council will come across with another grant of that sort of level. The fact that we sort of need it is commentary on the situation we find ourselves in. But I do have to say that our budget is a wonderful thing, and even if they don't, I think we will find the money to deliver the issues around the market towns and deprivation, certainly. And then Councillor Smith, yeah, we've been thrown under the bus. But I can tell you that concerns we are working within the context of the district council's network, and that I've seen minutes from that, and there is going to be a very strong lobby to government to assist councils going forward. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fry, once again, thank you very much for your report. Right, we now go to the vote, and you're voting for the amendment to the 2021 budget. Over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Terry Aldridge. Councillor Aldridge. I think you may be on mute. Just ask him to unmute himself. Just bear with me, please, Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Terry Aldridge, we're taking the vote on the key amendments to the budget. Councillor Aldridge.
Chair, is it worth coming back to Councillor Aldridge?
Yeah, go back to him at the end. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Andrews.
4.
Councillor Ashton is absent. Councillor Richard Avison.
4.
Councillor Stan Avison.
4.
Councillor Adrian Benjamin.
4.
Councillor Wendy Bowkett.
4.
Councillor Billy Brooks.
4.
Councillor Danny Brooks.
4.
Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
4.
Councillor Trevor Burnham.
4.
Councillor Sandra Campbell Wardman.
4.
Councillor Graham Cullen.
4.
Councillor Richard Cunnington. Councillor Cunnington.
No, I'm muted.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Dannett.
4.
Councillor Colin Davey.
4.
Councillor Sid Dennis.
4.
Councillor Sarah Devereux.
4.
Councillor Colin Dickinson.
4.
Councillor Dick Edgington.
4.
Councillor Stephen Eyre. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Eyre still with us, Elaine.
4.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Martin Foster.
4.
Councillor Richard Fry. Councillor William Gray.
4.
Councillor Chris Green.
4.
Councillor Adam Grist.
4.
Councillor Will Grover.
4.
Councillor Alex Hall.
4.
Councillor David Hall.
4.
Councillor Sandra Harrison is absent. Councillor Paul Hibbert Greaves.
4.
Councillor George Horton.
4.
Councillor Tony Howard.
4.
Councillor Rosalind Jackson.
4.
Councillor Neil Jones.
4.
Councillor Thomas Kemp.
4.
Councillor Steve Kirk.
4.
Councillor Terry Knowles.
4.
Councillor Andrew Leonard.
4.
Councillor Craig Leyland.
4.
Councillor Jill Makinson Sanders.
4.
Councillor David Manjon.
4.
Councillor Graham Marsh.
4.
Councillor Fiona Martin.
4.
Councillor Helen Matthews.
4.
Councillor Steve McMillan.
4.
Councillor Daniel McNally.
4.
Councillor Edward Mossop.
4.
Councillor Claire Newman.
4.
Councillor Sarah Parkin.
4.
Councillor Julie Platt.
4.
Councillor Paul Rickett.
4.
Councillor Phil Smith.
4.
Councillor Jim Swanson.
4.
Councillor Turton-Levers is absent. I'll just come back to Councillor Terry Aldridge and see if Councillor Aldridge can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, you're 4. 4, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
I keep drifting in and out, unfortunately.
Right, thank you. Thank you. We'll just compare results. If you bear with us a moment. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, okay.
Chairman, I'm sorry, I'm having a problem with my chat function at the moment. If I just announce the result and if I ask Alison if she could just confirm that this is correct, please, I think
Okay.
we'll be able to move forward a little quicker. I took down 52 for and 3 absent, none against. If
Right.
Alison could just say that she agrees with that.
Yeah, I agree with that, Anne. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's passed, 52 for and none against.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we now move on to item 9 on the agenda. Boston Borough Council and East Lindsey District Council Strategy Alliance, to consider the case for the creation of a strategy alliance between Boston Borough Council and East Lindsey District Council. Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chair.
And have we a seconder, please?
Yeah, that would be Councillor Marsh, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I carry on?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think it's interesting that we've had a debate this evening about the financial challenges that we face going forward, and not just in the realm of COVID-19, dealing with that, but also the challenges of how government will future fund local councils. I think this paper is an exciting opportunity, presents an exciting opportunity for both East Lindsey and Boston. You have the recommendations before you. I'm not going to go through those in detail. I know you've had time to read the report, and they are what they are. But I think the rationale for why we're doing this is important. It's very important to understand that actually both councils will still operate as individual entities, with council decision making in both chambers still ongoing as it should be, and that both councils are distinct entities going forward. This is about a combination of the workforces with management to better deliver services for our residents, and also to create capacity within the organisation. And I'm not just talking about savings here, I'm just talking about as well the opportunity to improve what we do and how we do it. I think going forward, there is a wider background that's at play here, and that's the devolution debate that's being initiated. And without overplaying that hand, I think it's quite important to recognise that actually that is going on in the background. But whatever happens with that, this is still a good thing to do. It represents a good understanding of how we can save money, provide capacity, and deliver services ongoing into the future for our residents in these very difficult times. I think the potential as well to understand how this affects our workforce is very important. I think after the initial changes, and we're looking at quite a period of time to deliver those changes once we make the initial decision tonight, we'll give our workforces in both authorities opportunities and ways forward for progression. And I think that's a particularly important thing. We're also looking to, with this alliance, give ourselves a stronger voice in any discussions going forward as Lincolnshire looks at potentially remodeling how it operates. And let's not forget, we are already in an alliance in provision of backroom services with South Holland in terms of Compass Point, or PS2 as it's now called. And that has worked extremely well for this council. We also as well, and I know there's quite a few concerns about how this will impact our residents and what changes it will make. Well, we're already involved with Boston in delivering a waste service between ourselves. And I think that happens as a matter of course. And I think residents should take confidence that actually this will be a good thing for the authority in the long term. I am very pleased to recommend this paper tonight. It's important to recognise that there is a time frame for this. The decision that we're making tonight is part of a progress going forward. We're deciding tonight to appoint a joint chief executive, section 151 officer and monitoring officer. And that will deliver the initial savings that we're looking at that are laid out in the financial papers of this. We're also looking to create a management structure, alter the management structure in a 3-month period. And after that, we're looking over a 2-year period to look at how the workforce is delivering services. And I think it has to be said that we're taking a very considered approach to this. This is not a rush to do something, but it's a timely pace to move things forward for both Boston and East Lindsey. As I say, I think it will be a good thing for residents. It will be a good thing for our officers as well in the long term. So we have the recommendations that you've been able to read. I think it's very important, given that we've just recognised the challenges that we face. Since 2010, between 2010 and 2019, we've seen a 25% drop in our funding from government. And that challenge will only get worse as time goes on, especially as the government is having to deal with the COVID pandemic and the costs of that going forward. We know that the savings that are going to be delivered will give us capacity, and I look forward to that working with our colleagues in Boston to progress that. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I just disappeared for a second. Mr. Chairman, on the basis of the papers that are in front of you, we have tested them externally in respect to the legal side of that and also the financial input that we've had. And I think it's only right that we have those externally tested to challenge our assumptions. This will be not without challenge for the Chief Exec to deliver the savings that we're asking of him, but we believe that these are achievable and also will be delivered in a way that actually will be good for the council. There is concern about how the workforce will be affected, and we're looking very clearly to manage that with the natural change and movement that happens within a workforce of this size between Boston and ourselves. I think that's very clearly laid out in the report. One thing that the leader of Boston and myself are very clear on, that we need to have minimum impact on our Office of Core, because they've done a fantastic job, obviously, over the last few months, but also from an East Lindsey perspective, since I became leader, I'm aware that we've had a number of challenges that they've risen to and delivered in bucketfuls. So I'm very aware of concerns of our officers. So on the basis of what I've said, Mr. Chairman, I'm quite happy to propose this paper as something good for Boston, something good for East Lindsey, jointly good for our residents, and taking on board the concerns of staff. I think in the long term, this will actually present a great opportunity for our very capable staff. So, Mr. Chairman, I will say no more and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor Leyland. Councillor Tony Howard, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think I understand the reasoning behind a move such as this. Ever since there was talk of a greater Lincolnshire authority and that falling through, it has emphasised that the world of local councils has changed completely, and the need for closer working with neighbours and a completely different outlook to life. However, getting specifically to the situation that has now been developed, which I think is actually a proactive step in light of what I've just said, I do think that the current recommendations don't sit exactly in line with the report that we have in front of us. I think that in the report, the investigating the route towards an alliance, us moving together, discussing. However, I find that the recommendation takes us just that little bit further than what is indicated in the report, in that at the first recommendation, it says not to investigate to agree to enter into a strategic alliance. It says straightforward to agree to enter. Now, I think that is just a little bit more than what is indicated in the report. And indeed, actually, in 2.2 of the memorandum of agreement, that's page 67 for those who need to look at it. It says at their meetings on whatever date, East Lindsey and Boston Borough Council respectively decided to prepare proposals for an integrated shared management structure. That doesn't say a complete done deal. That says it's the first step in the process, and that's a position that I can quite agree with. However, in the actual recommendation, it commits us wholly, totally to enter into the agreement. I'm sure that somewhere along the line we will get to that stage, but unfortunately there will be an interim period where we will look back at what has been decided tonight, and on the statute book in the minutes it will say that the resolution was to agree to do it regardless. I'm also worried about this particular step because I would have hoped to see within the recommendations some reference to the scrutiny process that will be ongoing. It has been discussed between group leaders, but there is no mention of it here. And I do believe that without some mention of it in the recommendations, with the recommendations as they stand, it is a way that it could be a bypass to proper scrutiny. I quite agree that tonight we could look at the chief exec's position and agree that, but I think we're trying to do just an extra step than we should be doing at this particular stage. And I would also say that Boston Borough Council are meeting at this very moment in time. What if they choose to go down a different route? Do we not look a little bit silly if we say we're going to do it and they say, hang on a minute, we want to do it a different way? So I think it's good and cautious the way that I'm suggesting, in that we don't go in full-fledged at that first point. I would have liked to have seen a calendar of scrutiny attached to this, and maybe the overview chair may be able to give me a reassurance, or Councillor Leyland himself, that that I'm worrying unduly. But it is a worry that there will come a time post this decision that it can be looked at back on, and the scrutiny process can be regarded as null and void. I appreciate the position that we're in at the moment, with the spectre of an enforced devolution package being foisted on us by moves that the county council are making at this moment in time. And I think that this position of coming together at district council level is a far better idea than anything centrally imposed on us at a county level style of devolution. I think district councils are far closer to their communities, and a devolution based on borough and districts coming together is a far better idea than a county style remote unitary type of devolution. Now, of course, this could all be a great contract put together by Councillors Hill of the county and Councillor Leyland as leaders of their respective authorities, to make it look as if there's a threat from behind to force this issue through. If it does turn out to be that, I will be very, very annoyed and will lose all respect I have for Councillor Leyland. But I hope I can get reassurances on that. Thank you.
Councillor Andrew Leonard, please.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I'm going to echo what's just been said, really, in many ways. I mean, it's a bit like buying a house and thinking about buying a house for 18 months and then buying it without having a survey done. It's the same comparable, really. I mean, at the recent executive board, Councillor Leyland assured Councillor Martin that he was happy for a fully scrutinised and considered approach to be taken. But we've been asked tonight to set the wheels in motion prior to that scrutiny. I mean, if there were to be a scrutiny now, what if Councillor Martin came back and said, well, actually, it's totally inappropriate, and produced a damning report? Too late, I hear you say, because the wheels are in motion. Having noted today the allocation for a whole page in the Louth Leader about the Horncastle Hub and the problems commented on by the Historic Environment Officer in respect of all the problems there, that information might have come out locally had there been a scrutiny review on that particular project. Therefore, I'd say it's a parallel of the same. And what we don't want to be is in a position where fools rush in respect to Boston. What may seem a good deal isn't necessarily a good deal. Particularly, as I said, we did that with Boston, with Horncastle. With the coronavirus, etc., the true financial status of Boston, I've looked at the figures. The Boston paperwork recently implied that their next financial period would be okay. However, it went on in a different tone of the wording that seemed unsure beyond the next financial period. Also, at the recent executive board meeting, Councillor Leyland said, about how we as the two councils merge and we look how to deliver our services. That was the quote exactly. But surely the analysis of how we deliver those services has already been done. Otherwise, how can you come up with a cost analysis of this merger and highlight potential savings if you don't know what or how you're delivering those services? Where is the evidence? And this the whole thing aimed at heading off the county council's ambitions, has just been mentioned. And if the figures don't stack up with the savings, I gather that both parties agree to leave. It's 12 months if you do agree to leave together, but if you don't, it's 24 months notice if the parties don't consent. So once we get into this web, it may be very difficult to get out of it. 18 months after starting negotiations, you're telling the councillors only a few weeks before you're asking us to vote. Even Boston wants a delay of 6 months to allow for scrutiny. So I think that says it all, along with their uncertainty and the chairman having to use his casting vote. I've had a call from a Boston councillor today confirming that they are totally unsure about what's happening and feel that they're not getting the full picture as well. They confirmed to me that their councillors think this is all being rushed through, and I would ask the question: who is actually being sold a pup here? Louth Town Council were told in a generic press release they're not happy about that. The community at large, I've been contacted by no end people, they're all unhappy. They know little or nothing about it, and it's all expected to be rushed through this evening. So therefore, I would like to propose an amendment to the proposition, which is that we bear in mind the route taken by Boston Council and we have a break for 6 months, during which time both councils have a transparent scrutiny process individually, and in the spirit of partnership working, a joint scrutiny could then be the culmination arising of the two individual council scrutiny. So that is my proposal, the amendment, please. Thank you.
Chairman, can I have a point of information or a point of order? In normal council, we have a clock set on the time that people can speak. Are we doing the same thing tonight? Because all I'm going to hear, I think, is the same thing repeated time after time, way past the 5 minutes we normally allow.
We have got someone watching the clock.
I confirm we are watching that, Chairman.
Thank you
I
very
am
much.
timing.
So Councillor Leonard has proposed an amendment. Has you got a seconder to his proposal?
I'd like to second the proposal.
Okay, so I think we need to take a vote on the amendment now, don't we?
Chairman, the position is that we've got a proposer and a seconder for an amendment. Members now, if they wish to speak, will need to speak on the amendment only.
Yeah.
It might just be helpful for all members if Councillor Leonard could just repeat the amendment so that all members are clear what change he is proposing to the recommendations listed within the report. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Leonard.
Well, the changes are that from today, as soon as possible, we instigate a scrutiny process before we take any key decisions. And that should be allowing 6 months henceforth, the fact that we actually have that time for that scrutiny to take place. So it represents us. And then if we can work partly in Boston, in conjunction with Boston, in respect of that scrutiny, all well and good. But the key point here is that we have a scrutiny for East Lincoln District Council.
Okay. Are you finished?
Yeah, thank you.
Getting funny noises. Okay, all future speakers then you'll speak on the amendment. And Councillor Ros Jackson is next.
No, sorry, Chairman.
No, wait a minute. Go back. Councillor Leyland.
Sorry, Chairman, I am trying to put my hand up. We're speaking on the amendment now, aren't we?
Yes.
So effectively, there'll be a new list of speakers, I should think, looking to speak on the amendment.
Okay, then. So all all those that are on the list to speak, please remove and then put your hand up again if you wish to speak on the amendment.
Right, so unraised hand and raised hand again.
Who seconded it, Chair, please?
Councillor
seconded the amendment?
Seconded it.
Sorry?
Councillor Macmillan. Councillor Macmillan.
Macmillan, it was seconded.
Yeah, who was it?
Councillor Macmillan.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a new list up now. And the first one is Makinson Sanders, please. You're muted. No, Jill, you're muted.
For once, we can't hear you.
Oh, shut up. I was trying to put myself at the bottom of the list, and I don't know how to take my hand down to put it at the bottom, and that's what I was fiddling around trying to do. So if you want to call somebody else first and put me at the bottom of the list, but just tell me how I raise my hand by...
You've got to get your hand up.
I'll go to the bottom of the list because I was up from last time and I haven't deleted it.
Okay.
Sorry.
So it's Councillor Ros Jackson next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually happy to speak on this amendment because a lot of Councillor Leyland's issues are also my issues. Lack of scrutiny has been a problem with this, and also lack of consultation. I do have a lot of residents who do feel under consulted on this. One of the things about this agreement and the detail of this agreement is that it's a little bit like
Point of order, Chairman. Can I interrupt? We're getting them answering or questioning the original question. We're now talking to the amendment. I don't think this is talking to the amendment. This is just people getting 2 bites of the cherry.
Not at all.
I haven't had one.
That is constitution. Not at all.
No, I'm speaking to the amendment. Can I continue?
Yes, carry on, Jackson.
It's like joining the EU in that disentangling this agreement will be harder than remaining in, and it'll be expensive. One of the questions that I have is what level does this constrain our budget setting priorities for staffing? Issues like that we haven't picked apart enough. So I do want to see more scrutiny, and I will be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Howard, please.
You cut me off.
Yeah, there is some merit, as I've just said, about doing scrutiny done. But I was assured through the process of the group leaders that we were tonight in a position to go as far as appointing Robert Barlow as the joint chief executive head of paid staff. And that was the important first stage. And from that point on, we could roll out a scrutiny process. I highlighted when I was talking to the original document where I see the problem in that we're going too far, but I don't want to completely put a brake on the necessary step, that of appointing the joint chief executive, which I think can be done this evening. I don't think there's another candidate in the frame because it should be one or other of the 2 chief execs, and one of those is standing aside. I know from talking to some people in Boston that they believe there should be an interview process for the post, but having recently only put our chief executive through that process, I do not think it fair to do that to him again, in that we've agreed that he is a chief executive and that he fills that role and has now been in that position, and none of us have any reason to doubt his abilities. It would be unfair to put him through that process again. So as far as the amendment is concerned, all I would actually want to see is what I said previously, would be a couple of words added to the original recommendation number 1, and not for us to completely kick this backwards at this particular stage in time. We have got time to do the scrutiny. I have called for the scrutiny to be done of the joint. We will hopefully get reassurances that we could go with that. It therefore makes it difficult for me to support the amendment because I believe it kicks out some good that could be done this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Marsh, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, clearly I won't be supporting this amendment because I believe this is just another opportunity to talk something out instead of getting on with something. To me, it's an absolute madness. We all know that, and it's been mooted about, this is a merger. It's not a merger. It's having a strategic alliance with a council that we already work with, who is our neighbour, who we already have a good relationship with. And I can't possibly see the reason that we're kicking this in the long grass for another 6 months on the grounds that somebody who particularly doesn't want it can just extend it. It's like a local Brexit. It's a pathetic attempt. And I think we should, all of us, vote this amendment out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Councillor George Halton, please.
Councillor Horton, you're currently on mute if you want to unmute yourself.
Is that better?
That's it.
Sorry, I'll start again. Excuse me. First of all, when this we heard about this 3 or 4 weeks ago, I looked at that and I thought, well, this could potentially be a good idea. Joining forces and bringing things together. It would save Boston Borough Council and East Lindsey Council quite a bit of savings in revenue and one thing as another. However, having looked at the paper and looked at it more in depth and spoke to quite a few people on both sides of Boston and East Lindsey and some of the staff, a lot of the staff, and I say a lot because out of 13 I spoke to, 11 were against it and 2 couldn't be bothered. But however, there are many things, there are many questions that need to be answered. And there are some questions that haven't been answered. And if this is so important and so vital to both authorities, I cannot see a harm in suspending this for 6 months and going through the proper channels of a members' day, of scrutiny, and all the rest of it. Andrew Leonard actually took the words out of my mouth when he said you wouldn't buy a house, having bought the house, then have a survey on it. And this is very similar. You wouldn't go into an alliance without first looking at the ins and outs and having it scrutinised so that both parties, it becomes open and transparent. As far as the devolution part is concerned, I'm led to believe that a few years ago, it had to be 100% in favour, whereas this time on the table, it doesn't have to be. So the devolution issue is totally out of the question. It will have no effect whether we're part of Boston or not. The leader also mentioned that we are very good neighbours, very good friends with South Holland. We do a lot of work through PS2. But how all of a sudden are we jumping Boston and jumping South Holland and going to Boston? Surely the most sensible thing would be to form an alliance with South Holland. Don't forget, it was only a few years ago that Boston refused to be part of our alliance when it came on the table. And now they're looking to join us. But more importantly, one of the things, and it's become my bone of contention, is the proportion of pay. We seem to be paying 67% of the revenue as against Boston's 33%. Now, I am told that is down to the accountability of the electorate. Well, that's a load of rubbish, because at 10 to 2 on a Tuesday afternoon, the chief executive isn't going to walk out of Boston Borough Council and come down to East Lindsey. It doesn't work like that. You have to do a fair proportion, and a fair proportion would be 40% and 60%. When you look at Phil Drury, the chief executive of Boston Borough Council. Now, he's been there since 1983. He started as a youth trainee. He's worked his way up through the various departments to become chief executive. Now his remuneration is going to be a great package for him. And what are we agreeing tonight? We are agreeing to pay 67% of that package, and he has contributed nothing to East Lindsey. That is a terrible burden for the ratepayer. And so it goes on. We seem to be landed with a lion's share of the bill, when I don't think it's fairly proportioned out. I can't believe that I watched our executive board get so excited over this, when you consider that we are looking to lose potentially 33 jobs. Now, if you go to page 99 of the
Councillor
report.
Alton, can
Yes?
you talk on the amendment, please? We're talking about going to scrutiny. You're talking.
No. I'm talking about the amendment that we should suspend it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And if you turn to page 99 of the report, there is another good reason why we should suspend it and go to scrutiny. When I find my page. Because it says in the second paragraph, number 1, the financial implications. Initially, the post that will be lost will be middle to senior management. If that figure isn't reached, we're then going to go to the people who have served this authority tremendously well over this pandemic. Our leader has already praised them to no end, and quite rightly so. But it looks like these people who have served this authority well could be losing their jobs. Well, I don't find that exciting at all, and I'm ashamed that the executive board found it so. I will recommend, and I back, that we put this on hold for 6 months and do a proper, open and transparent scrutiny so that everything can be out in the open, and then we can take a vote that we all know what we're voting on, because I'm sure half of us don't know what we're voting on. So I will support the amendment of 6 months.
Thank you, Councillor Alton. Councillor Jill Makinson-Sardis, please.
Thank you. Well, Councillor Leyland's told us that the merger is considered and not a rush. I think actually most of the members of the community do think it's a rush, and this is coming at a time of with COVID and all the rest of it. I'm going to hear your arguments, I'm sure, but I do think we need to show the public we are transparent, and we have looked at it from the stance of value for money, and that it's irrefutable, because I don't feel I can vote for my on behalf of my residents who are struggling to pay their council tax if it ain't going to be right. There are things that need to be more fully explained. I look at particular clause 6.7 that Eversheds bring up. It talks about the council being faced with unexpected costs, audit challenge or concerns, and this is apropos pensions, and it says they need, as far as possible, these need to be costed and referred in a schedule to the agreement. Where is that? I do know at Boston they're claiming the unions have been consulted. I have an email in my possession from the GMB which says they haven't been consulted. I do think, you know, there are so many concerns of things that we're being told one thing and then something else is happening. And I think for transparency, to show our public we have done the job that we're required to do, we do need to look at it. I was the only member of the leaders group who actually asked for a scrutiny before we agreed to it. And to me, if you're going to buy into a business or anything, you need to go through all the paperwork to be absolutely sure you know everything, all the skeletons in the cupboard and everything else. And I feel that if we had a scrutiny and we followed our colleagues at Boston, that we should do the same. They're suggesting very wisely in my book that we just put it on hold for 6 months, but perhaps Councillor Leyland could tell me what the rush is, because I don't quite grasp that. Nothing in all this paperwork, and I've got note after note after note. I can't see anywhere where it has got to be done by the 1st of July. I'm looking at dates on agreements and they're in April. We didn't even know about it until May. So I think to defer to the public and to defer to the concerns of everyone, we need to go into this and defer a decision for 6 months. So I'll be voting for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fiona Martin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I've been quite clear from the word go about all this, and that there will be scrutiny. There will be scrutiny going forward to stages 2 and 3. I've said so at the members' day. Councillor Leonard refers to it in his question later on. I put my foot down at the executive board and put the marker in the sand that there would be scrutiny of stages 2 and 3. I'm sorry, I can't support the amendment tonight. You've said some scrutiny. What is the scope of that scrutiny? What is the scope of that piece of work? You're not proposing a scope or exactly what that piece of work will be. 6 months, is that long enough actually? Because some of the work that we're talking about isn't going to be done until 2022, stage 3. I was proposing, and it is on the agenda for the overview meeting that's going to happen next month, as to how the overview committee wants to tackle this particular project. And let's just be clear, Councillor Leonard, it's not my report, it'll be the overview or scrutiny panel's report and not mine. I don't write the reports, they're up to the chairman of the panel. And I hope you'll be volunteering to join the panel when it's set up, because that will be good to have more volunteers for once for panels than we've got places, because we struggle to get people usually to volunteer. So I'm pleased that hopefully a lot of the people who are proposing scrutiny tonight will be lining up to volunteer for the panel when it is set up in July. But I can't see how we can scrutinise a joint chief executive. That is what we're proposing tonight. How do we scrutinise a joint chief executive? This isn't something new. We've shared offices with Boston Borough Council before. Michelle Sachs is mentioned in this paper. We've shared her as a monitoring officer before. We've shared Rob Barlow at one stage as a joint officer with Boston Borough. This is not something that is uncommon to us. So I'm sorry, I can't support your amendment, but I'm quite happy as chairman of overview to give an assurance tonight that this is an item on the agenda for the overview meeting in July, and it will be subject to full scrutiny going forward on stages 2 and 3.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Phil Smith, please.
Well, I'm very heartened by what Councillor Martin says there about the readiness of overview to scrutinise. But I think beyond scrutiny, there's also the question of consultation. And I'd like to see some reassurance that all of the documents that we have seen, the unions have also seen, because our workforce, both our officers and our front-facing staff, and our two-load staff out there doing the job for us in very difficult circumstances now, do not seem to have the same view of what this proposal means. Both the information put out by the GMB and by Unison both seem to indicate a very different view of what this it's not a merger, but this joint working is going to involve. And beyond that, I'd like to know, if we are going to find efficiencies, that usually means redundancies. And this is at a time when what we really need is more flexibility for our staff, as we've seen in the current emergency, and that contingency of having additional staff, which is not to say surplus staff, but to have staff which are flexible and can move, is vitally important. So I'd like an assurance that we do have full consultation with the unions and that we have already had it before we make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Sarah Parkin, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Can I just say that I actually take a really dim view about how this has been presented tonight. I don't believe for 1 minute that Councillor Leonard has walked into this room or walked into his room and decided that tonight, on the spur of the moment, he's going to put forward an amendment. It is courtesy and it is best practice for those amendments to be tabled, so we've actually all got time to consider them, particularly in the context of how we're meeting at the moment. So I would just like to say that in there now as kind of like a mark in the sand for what is considered best practice moving forward. I am really baffled by how tangled we are about something that is actually essentially very, very simple. Tonight, we are deciding to share joint strategic management of two councils. We are not merging. We have got ample time to give detailed overview to how that then moves forward in terms of shared workforce, shared services. We are very clear that it will give us capacity. It is very clear from the economic and tourism scrutiny that's going on at the moment that the best way that we need to move forward in terms of promoting tourism is by joint and integrated working together. That evidence is absolutely unequivocal. In terms of waiting 6 months, what are we waiting for? The devolution argument and Martin Hill's letter last week, I think it was, that went through government shows that they are serious and they are moving quick. 6 months will just mean that we're left high and dry in terms of those discussions. And so I suggest we move forward, because what we are suggesting at the moment, I actually think if we presented it publicly, correctly, factually, people would quite like. We are talking about our senior officers being shared in a way that actually saves money to the public purse. I have not encountered anybody, when it's presented like that, who has seen it as a problem. As Fiona has said, the overview and the scrutiny and the details of the services and the changes moving forward can then be subject to scrutiny over a long period of time. And that is the correct way of doing it, because the context of those will change and evolve and develop as we move forward. So no, I will not be supporting this amendment. I don't see why we cannot have our cake and eat it. We can move forward with these decisions that are on these council papers tonight and still have scrutiny about the finer detail and how this impacts our services. And it's the services that our residents really care about, not what our senior management structure is.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Park. Councillor Danny Brooks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I won't be supporting the amendment. We've got cliches of only fools rushing, but we've also got one which says, he who hesitates is lost. I think the county council are planning something big. They're trying to grab all our land. I'm quite in favour of devolution down. If we devolve up to the county council, Skegness will get even less than what it does from them now, which is not a lot. So I won't be supporting this. I think Rob Barlow has proven his mettle as an excellent chief exec, so I wouldn't be wanting to put that out to interview. So no, basically I won't be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Andrew Leonard, please.
It's just really a point of fact. Councillor Marsh said that it's a bit like Brexit all over again and I'm against it. I'm not against it. What I want is the facts to be proven and the public to be proven, the fact that they've got all the information to hand, we've got all the information to hand, and financially it stacks up for us as a council and them as residents of the district.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steve Kirk, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, I'm sorry, but I think there's some people here on this meeting are looking at different set of papers to mine. I'm looking at a set of papers that says that we should enter a strategic alliance, nothing more, that we should share our statutory officers, and that as we go further down the line, if anything is to change, it'll be changed by joint agreement of both councils. That's quite clear. That's what it says in these documents. So what we're actually voting on, as Councillor Parkin quite rightly said, is should we share our statutory officers with Boston Borough Council and save our ratepayers some money going forward instantly? Even if we do nothing else, we are saving that money instantly. And it could come to pass that we don't actually share anything else. It could come to pass that there is no joint working. I don't believe that for 1 second. Boston is very strong working around manufacturing. We're very, very strong working around tourism. So there is work there to be done together. There's no doubt about it. But to say we should delay appointing Rob Barlow as a joint chief executive, Michelle Sachs as a joint monitoring officer, and Paul as the 151 officer for 6 months so we can scrutinise those 3 decisions, I think is foolhardy at very, very best. So no, of course I won't be supporting this. I think there's absolutely no merit in delaying things for 6 months when actually this tonight is committing to sharing statutory officers, having a strategic alliance and possibly joint working in the future. Nothing more. It's time for scrutiny, and I'm sure that our chair of scrutiny will be like a dog with a bone going forward on this one, as is only right and proper. So as an amendment, I think it's poor, and I certainly won't vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Kirk. Councillor Sid Dennis, please.
Hi, good evening all. Yeah, when it comes to the consultation part of this, it seems to be coming up in this amendment. You know, ladies and gentlemen, our constituents vote us in to make decisions on their behalf. You know, and that's why I'm totally against this amendment. We're going to get nothing done. You know, sometimes that's our job. Our job is to make decisions on behalf of our constituents. And that's what we're doing. And I can't see what all this fuss is about, except possibly just to slow things down and make political gain. I think it's dreadful, really. I cannot support this amendment. And I will. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Craig Leyland, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been listening to the comments that have been made this evening by opposition members in respect of delay and not making a decision tonight and leaving it for another day. I've got to say, it fits in with the general pattern of how we've had to deal with things at this council, about this administration wanting to progress things and protect our residents' services and progress things in a very challenging environment. I cannot support this amendment. Going back to the issues about how we share services with Boston, as the point's already been made, we've had a joint 151 officer, a joint monitoring officer, with no hint of an issue for residents. We are initiating an alliance, of a strategic alliance in terms of the workforce, starting with the chief exec. Nothing sinister. The decision tonight is very clear. And I think those comments that have been made by fellow colleagues supporting this, make perfect sense. And actually, I'm very pleased to hear Councillor Parkin's clarity on the matter. She's absolutely right. In respect of staff consultation, there have been joint staff consultations in both authorities about this over an ongoing period of time. The unions have been consulted. They were met by our chief exec and deputy chief exec on the 6th of May. They were consulted. So we are not doing anything here that is sinister or against the interests of our staff. In fact, we're looking to make sure that actually in the future of this, we are securing a footprint that delivers for our staff and our officers. Now, there will be churn, and we're trying to avoid the situation where we have compulsory redundancies, because we know that staff have done a fantastic job over this last 3 months. But as I said earlier, fully recognise the efforts that they've made over the last number of years of all the different things that they've had to deal with. So we are mindful that this will be dealt with by churn within the organisation, where there are doubling up of efforts. And Councillor Smith, you made the absolute right point about the adaptability of our staff. We will be looking to make sure that people can be retrained and put in other jobs within the authority. That is the intention. Both Councillor Skinner and myself, when this was initiated, asked very clearly from both our chief execs that actually the impact on staff would be as limited as possible. And that's what we're progressing. So I cannot support this amendment. I think if we're going to have a rerun of the debate when we go back to the main substantive motion, because most of the points have been made here, we're going to be here all night. This has to be delivered with pace. If you want to delay for 6 months, we will be in the position that Boston were 10 years ago when they didn't jump on board with Compass Point and missed out on £21 million worth of savings for South Holland and ourselves. Now, we either make a decision tonight or we don't. But I tell you what, if we don't make the right decision tonight, that 6 months, we will regret giving that time, because things are fast moving. We're an authority that's very well run financially. And why we all of a sudden abandon that scrutiny and adherence to our good financial principles dealing with this is beyond belief. Councillor Fry and our 151 officers have done a great job, as has Rob Barlow. And actually, Rob Barlow started off working for a council in a very lowly fashion and progressed through the workforce as Mr. Drury has. So we want to see that progress for other officers within the organisations. So I'm not supporting the amendment, and I really wish we need to get on. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Leyland. Councillor Will Grover, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't be supporting this amendment either, but I just wanted to pick up. I've heard this analogy mentioned a few times. This is like buying a house. I don't understand how that analogy is true, because to be honest, we've already got a house. We've already got East Lindsey District Council, and we've already got Boston Borough Council. We've got our separate houses. This is more about bringing our houses together and having a picnic. We're bringing the alcohol, they're bringing the food, and everyone is benefiting out of that. But more importantly, I just wanted to echo Councillor Parkin's comments. You know, this is about building on good relationships and working with Boston Borough Council to deliver for our residents and finding creative and cost-effective ways to benefit our residents. And finally, I noticed that many of the people that have been calling for the amendment are the same people that were really concerned about the repairs budget. This is about saving money to deliver on things like the repair budget for our residents. Certainly won't be supporting the amendment.
Well said, Ron.
Thank you, Councillor Grover. Councillor Claire Newman, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo some of the comments that I've heard, and most definitely will not be supporting this amendment. But what I did want to ask is if I could have an opportunity, once this amendment has been voted on, to suggest a compromise on a new amendment, please, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Phil Smith, please.
I'm quite pleased to what Councillor Leyland just said there, but I would just like to ask again, have in your consultation with the unions, have they seen all of the documents that we have seen? This is a great opportunity for more contingency within our staff, as you suggest. I think it's. I don't think the amendment is necessary if we know that we have got full consultation with the unions.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the end of the speakers.
Mr. Chairman, can I just have a point of order in that respect, just to provide information for Councillor Smith?
Yes, okay, Councillor Leyland.
Yes, they were provided with all the documents when they met with, sorry, I just really actually got something on my beard, with Councillor, sorry, when they met with Rob Barlow. So yes, the documents were shared.
Okay, so we go back to Councillor Andrew Leonard as the proposer of the amendment.
Andrews, I think there's Councillor Macmillan is the seconder of the amendment.
I don't think he said he reserved his right to speak.
Apologies, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, you want me back on?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, let me endorse what I've said. I've obviously heard all the comments. My point is, and it remains the same, that we give the opportunity for scrutiny to come up with the information to provide for us and the residents about the whole viability of it. If we appoint somebody tonight, that is the starting gun, and essentially the scrutiny will be after the event. And that's the whole problem for me. The scrutiny is after the event. If something comes up that's a major problem in scrutiny, you've got on the bus and you can't get off, potentially. So my proposition was that we make that amendment for the 6-month period to allow scrutiny to do its due process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Right, you've heard the amendment, so we'll now go to the vote. to vote on the amendment. Over to Anne.
Thank you, Chairman. On the amendment, Councillor Terry Aldridge.
For the amendment.
Councillor David Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Tom Ashton, absent. Councillor Richard Avison.
Against.
Councillor Stan Avison.
Against.
Councillor Adrian Benjamin.
Against.
Councillor Wendy Bokitt.
Against.
Councillor Billy Brooks.
Against.
Councillor Danny Brooks.
Against.
Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
Against.
Councillor Trevor Burnham.
Against.
Councillor Campbell Wardman.
Against.
Councillor Graham Cullen.
Against.
Councillor Richard Cunnington.
Against.
Councillor Mark Dannett.
Against.
Councillor Colin Davey.
Against.
Councillor Sid Dennis.
Against.
Councillor Sarah Devereux.
Against.
Councillor Carleen Dickinson.
For.
Councillor Dick Edgington.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Eyre.
For.
Councillor Martin Foster.
For. Against,
Councillor-
sorry.
Ooh.
Oh, nearly. Sorry. My apologies.
That's against, thank you.
Pay
Councillor
attention.
Councillor Richard Fry.
Against.
Councillor William Gray.
Against.
Councillor Chris Green.
Against.
Councillor Adam Grist.
I'm against.
Councillor Will Grover.
Against.
Councillor Alex Hall.
Against.
Councillor David Hall.
Against.
Councillor Sandra Harrison is absent. Councillor Paul Hibbert Greaves.
Against.
Councillor George Horton.
For.
Councillor Tony Howard.
Against, but I'd like to put on notice that I would second Councillor Newman's amendment.
No.
Councillor, I think the rule of debate is that we vote on this
Can't
first,
do
and
that.
then if there are other amendments, you can propose and
Okay,
second
I was trying to
afterwards.
speak
So
as
we
well,
come to
sorry.
that after. Councillor Rosalind Jackson.
Against.
Councillor Neil Jones.
Against.
Councillor Thomas Kemp.
Against.
Councillor Steve Kirk.
Against.
Is that against?
It was definitely against.
Thank you very much. Councillor Terry Knowles.
Against.
Councillor Andrew Leonard.
For.
Councillor Craig Leyland.
Against.
Councillor Jill Makinson Sanders.
For.
Councillor David Manjon.
Against.
Councillor Graham Marsh.
Against.
Councillor Fiona Martin.
Against.
Councillor Helen Matthews.
Against.
Councillor Steve McMillan.
For.
Councillor Daniel McNally.
Against.
Councillor Edward Mossop.
Abstain.
Councillor Claire Newman.
Against.
Councillor Sarah Parkin.
Against.
Councillor Julie Platt.
Against.
Councillor Paul Rickett.
Against.
Councillor Phil Smith.
Against.
Councillor Jim Swanson. Councillor Swanson.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Turton Levers is absent. Thank you. Bear with us a moment, please, Chairman. Thank you. While we
Okay.
agree. Thank
Yeah,
you.
fine.
While we're doing that, can we have a quick comfort break?
Yeah, sure. Does everyone want a quick comfort break?
Yes, please.
Right. Where you go. because I'm going as well.
Jill, I can hear you.
At this rate, Chairman, I think I ought to ask permission to go and put my pyjamas on because I think we'll be here all night.
After we've finished this item, I'm going to ask if it's okay for everyone to carry on because we've gone over 2 hours.
It's when you get past 4 you got to start worrying.
I've got some matchsticks.
I just had to go get a bit of chocolate to keep me going.
I know it's getting late. The barn owl's just flown past.
Was it carrying the barn with it?
You want something stronger than that?
I've got the candles ready.
I'm being good. I'm eating grapes.
Are you eating our sandwiches, Councillor Leyland?
Say again, sorry.
Are you eating our sandwiches?
I'm just taking the cling film off the chips.
Didn't anyone tell you you had to make your own?
Ooh. Yeah, look, everybody want a bit of chocolate?
I just realised halfway through being annoyed, I had some food in my beard.
You can have it for breakfast then.
I can smell my dinner wafting up the stairs, which is bloody annoying.
I haven't even started cooking mine.
Adrian, does your penguin have a name?
You're muted, Adrian.
Did you want to see the penguin again? I only put him there just to make sure I was still here as a token. I could have
I'm
a nice
aware we're
tea.
still being live streamed, by the way, so
be careful.
Yeah.
It's definitely a penguin, not a token.
Can I just ask, please, why
Definitely
our
there.
ability? Can I just ask why our ability to speak to each other has been switched off?
Well, it hasn't. We can talk.
We can talk now, but if you want to send a message, I was told
yeah.
that we couldn't. Why? What's the reason?
I think you should stop us being here till past midnight.
Just
Sorry,
making
can we just be aware, folks, that we still are being streamed, live streamed?
Well, could I have an answer to that, Craig? Why can't we use the?
You'll
Why
have to
can't
ask
we use
the.
that?
You'll have to ask the support staff who are operating this. It's beyond my control.
Okay.
Councillor Sanders, if I may be of assistance, it's been revised so that on the advice of our information security analysis, so you should still be able to send messages to those of us that are hosting the meeting if they've got any issues with which you're experiencing with the administration of the meeting, but the other elements have been turned off. Thank you.
Sorry, I don't quite understand. For what? For security? I don't understand that.
There is an issue potentially of freedom of information that I understand that happens with the offline chat.
Really? Well, why is there a facility for it then?
That's Zoom.
But I'm sure John will clarify that. I'm going to turn my mic off because I'm in feedback.
Yeah, just to clarify, that facility comes as part of the package with the software, so it's not something that we've put in. It's something that just comes with the rest of the functionality.
No, that's as long as it can go.
He's gone the other way.
It's dark, but still.
No, I'm all right now.
You're not speaking.
To anybody who's listening, we would have liked to have used the chat facility to work as a group, as we would normally do in the chamber, and it has been rather inconvenient for us to work as a group without that facility. So I don't know what's preventing that, but it kind of has thrown a spanner in the works of how we wanted to work on this evening.
Well, I don't see how you could say that, Tony, because if it's in the council chamber, you won't be able to talk to each other anyway.
Of course we do.
No, you do it at your pre-meetings.
Are we ready to continue, Councillor
Yeah,
Andrew?
yeah. I'm back and ready.
I can confirm, Chairman, that we do still have 59 participants in the meeting. Nobody's dropped off.
Okay. Have we got the results, Anne?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The amendment was defeated. 7 for, 44 against, 1 abstention and 3 absent.
Okay, so that 44 for, 7 against, 1 abstain. So the amendment was lost. So we go back to the original proposal, which was the Boston Council and Lindsay District Council Strategy Alliance.
Mr. Chairman, can I offer a point of order or point of information rather?
Yes, Councillor Leyland.
I'm picking up from Councillor Howard, and I suspect, and I'm not going to try and prejudge what Councillor Newman's going to say, but in the issue, or on the issue of scrutiny, can I give my assurance, and I think the executive board have a reasonably good track record of taking on board scrutiny panel recommendations to influence and to direct some of the decisions we've made. Can I assure Councillor Howard and also other councillors that Councillor Martin is willing to be fully engaged in the scrutiny process once we've made the decision tonight, at the various stages that we need to in terms of the 3-month for the managerial structures, and then how the services are delivered between the joint councils. So in reality, the amendments that are being put forward cannot really succeed because both councils have to progress with the same recommendations. So just for assurance, I am giving you my word as leader of the council that there will be a full scrutiny process involved as Councillor Martin wants to shape it going forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Leyland. So it's Councillor Claire Newton, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Craig also for those comments and the assurance, which is really what we're gearing towards. And my amendment or proposed amendment would be for recommendation 1 to just have the wording slightly at the beginning to read, to agree to move towards entering the strategic alliance, etc. Recommendation 1.
Okay, Councillor Richard.
That's what I would like to second.
Oh dear, we got another amendment.
No, I said that's what I would like to second, that amendment.
Yeah, Councillor Leyland.
Mr. Chairman, I'm for all the reasons that we've stated before, and I recognise the intent of Councillor Newman and Councillor Howard in that amendment proposal, but in reality we cannot alter the recommendations as we are both taking this through council at Boston and at East Lindsey. So my recommendation, again, my assurance stands again that, and I'm sure Councillor Martin can speak for herself in respect of the rigour of the scrutiny process that we will undertake. I'm quite happy for that to be on record, which I know it will be because this is being recorded and edited. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Richard Cunnington, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I reserve my right to speak. With regards to the original papers in front of us, page 59, 1.1.2, bullet point number 6, you state there, Craig, that you're going to improve, if I'm correct, to improve the sea defences and also the A16. I've got concerns over the A16 because obviously, if I'm right and if I read the paperwork correctly, the A16 is part of a county council thing. So what are we doing getting involved with highways issue, which is a county issue? And what improvements, could you clarify on the improvements that you're looking to make? Is it just resurfacing? Are we looking to do any major repairs or any major extensions or anything? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lane will answer that at the end. Councillor Martin, please.
Thank you. Well, I'm quite happy for about the 6th time to give full assurance that scrutiny will be involved fully. As I said earlier this evening, seems an age ago now, but I did put the marker down on the table at the exec board some weeks ago now that scrutiny would want to be involved and had a role to be involved fully in the next 2 stages. I repeated that at the members' day, that a lot of people, I'm getting a lot of feedback, a lot of people here this evening actually zoomed into the members' day where I gave that assurance again, and I've given it already earlier this evening. I'm quite happy to repeat it. I'll repeat it as many times as you like. And as I've said earlier this evening, I'm looking forward to everybody coming forward and volunteering to be on the panel. And the scope of that scrutiny will be up to Overview to decide. I don't understand, sorry, I don't agree or write the scopes any more than I write the reports. It's up to the Overview Committee on which everybody, every group is represented, to write the scopes and then agree the final reports, which will then come to committee. And as Craig said earlier this evening, the exec board have a good record of taking on board what scrutiny panels and Overview recommend. I'll keep saying it if you want me to, but I fully...
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Craig
Chair,
Leyland.
Chair, a point of order. We formally moved an amendment and seconded it, and yet we don't seem to be debating it.
Chairman, if I can come in here, I think Councillor Howard has referred to the fact we have a proposal from Councillor Newman for an amendment.
Yes.
Councillor Howard, I believe you already spoke on the original motion right back at the beginning of this at that
On
time.
the original, yes.
So if there's a seconder, they'll need to second that motion, because I think you'd already spoken right at the beginning of this debate before the amendment was moved.
Okay.
Thank you. So is there another seconder for that amendment?
I'll second that.
Who was that?
I'm quite happy to second that as well, Councillor Hall.
Okay then, so we're going to another amendment. Can you please read out your amendment again, please, Councillor Newman?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My amendment would just be to alter the wording at the start of recommendation 1, for it to move to agree to move towards entering into a strategic alliance. That's my amendment.
Okay, and that is seconded, yes. Right, so Councillor David Hall wishes to speak.
I was just going to second the amendment if nobody else could.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Graham Marsh, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to propose that we move to the vote rather than be talking around in circles.
Yeah, okay. Well, Councillor Craig Leyland was next. So are we going to the vote?
With as much haste as you like, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Right, so we're going to the vote for the amendment. Over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Terry Aldridge.
Support the amendment.
Councillor David Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Tom Ashton, absent. Councillor Richard Avison.
Against.
Councillor Stan Avison.
Against.
Councillor Adrian Benjamin.
Against.
Councillor Wendy Bowkett.
Against.
Councillor Billy Brooks.
Against.
Councillor Danny Brooks.
We shall, for the purpose of facilitating the strategic alliance, be seconded to Boston Borough Council as Chief Executive and Head of
Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
Against.
Councillor Trevor Burnham.
Against.
Councillor Sandra Campbell-Wardman.
Against.
Councillor Graham Cullen.
To support.
Councillor Richard Cunnington.
Against.
Councillor Mark Dannett.
Against.
Councillor Colin Davey.
Against.
Councillor Sid Dennis.
Against.
Councillor Sarah Devereux.
Against.
Councillor Colin Dickinson.
Abstain.
Boston Borough Council shall formally employ Mr. Sachs, who shall, for the purpose.
Councillor Dick Edgington.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Eyre. Councillor Eyre.
Against. 7% of the cost of Mrs. Sachs' remuneration, and Boston Borough Council will contribute 30.
Sorry, excuse me, Chairman. We're getting a radio feed or something coming over at the moment.
Who's not muted?
Can I ask if everybody mutes unless they're voting? Thank you. So we got as far as Councillor Stephen there, and that was against. Councillor Martin Foster.
Against.
Councillor Richard Fry. Councillor Fry.
Against.
Councillor William Gray.
Against.
Councillor Chris Green.
Again. Yeah, against.
Councillor Adam Grist.
I'm against.
Councillor Will Grover.
Against.
Councillor Alex Hall.
Against.
Councillor David Hall.
For.
Councillor Sandra Harrison is absent. Councillor Paul Hibbert Greaves.
Against.
Councillor George Horton. Councillor Horton.
Sorry,
Councillor Horton.
I did vote for.
You're saying for this
I'm
amendment?
playing, yeah, I'm playing
you.
golf.
Thank you. Councillor Robin.
For.
Councillor Neil Jones.
Against.
Councillor Thomas Kemp.
Against.
Councillor Steve Kirk.
Against.
Councillor Terry Knowles.
Against.
Councillor Andrew Leonard.
Against.
Councillor Craig Leyland.
Against.
Councillor Jill Makinson Sanders.
I'm abstaining. I haven't got a clue where we've got to.
Councillor David Manjon.
Against.
Councillor Graham Marsh.
Against.
Councillor Fiona Martin.
Against.
Councillor Helen Matthews.
Against.
Councillor Steve McMillan.
Against.
Councillor Daniel McNally.
Against.
Councillor Edmund Mossop.
Against.
Councillor Claire Newman.
For.
Councillor Sarah Parkin.
Against.
Councillor Julie Platt.
Against.
Councillor Paul Rickett.
Against.
Councillor Phil Smith.
For.
Councillor Jim Swanson.
Against.
Councillor Turton Levers is absent. Thank you. One moment, please, Chairman.
Okay, Anne.
I'm not sure whether my vote was registered, but it was for, just in case it was missed.
Was noted. Thank you, Councillor Howard.
Could I just have 5 minutes to put my pyjamas on, Mr. Chairman?
Of course you can, Stan.
Thank you, Chairman. The amendment was defeated.
Right.
8 for, 42 against, 2 abstentions and 3 absent.
Okay, thank you. So that was defeated. Can I suggest that we go straight on and carry on with the original amendment? I think we've had enough debate on this. Well, I'll let Councillor Edward Mossop have his say. Councillor Mossop.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I think we're now talking about this is not an amendment, but the substantive motion.
Yes,
I am sure.
yes.
Yeah, that's correct, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't want to repeat myself and get some insults from Councillor Marsh. I'm sure what I've got to say has been shaped really by the debate so far. I don't have a problem with the principle of sharing a chief executive and key officers, especially if this is saving money. It's something that is done as a matter of course in councils, as we know, and indeed we've already been sharing services. And many smaller organisations, for example, our local rural school in Lincolnshire, have been particularly susceptible to cuts and budgetary constraints. And sharing heads and working together has given them a survival route. And it's very much the same for East Lindsey. Looking for a partner and finding one so close is probably welcome. However, I would like some answers in relation to this question about sharing costs, because I am a little bit concerned about the deal that has been done so far and the manner in which it's been done. I know the leader and deputy have been in talks for quite some time, and so hearing about this on the day of yet another spin from our press office was at best a surprise, and at worst a bit of an insult to the rest of us. So illustrating this is about the question of sharing costs, and I know it may well have been debated at the members' day we had, but I had some technical problems and couldn't get into that debate, so I gave up and went away, unfortunately. But basing costs on the respective population, in most circumstances, I would agree. But in terms of the statutory officers, the monitoring officer, the chief executive, section 151, head of paid service chief executive, etc., where those are essential components of a separate democratic entity, and we are going to remain so as we're not merging, we are going to retain our separate identity, then to me the proportion should be 50-50. And so no, I will be questioning that deal as to whether that was a good deal for East Lindsey. And also in terms of the choice of our partner, geographically I think it's a good fit, but politically I think we may well have heard something flashing over the debates about what's already happened at Boston and the votes that's probably been taken there. But Boston have fallen short on the first hurdle 10 years ago and missed the party. And I think that there is less than unanimity about this. So I think the executive board needs to be quite careful about how they manage this, because you live by the sword and die by the sword. And Boston Borough Council have had quite a few leaders in the past 4 years. And so that knife edge majority that they've got, and then forcing these things through, may well backfire on some, only lead to more resentment. So in conclusion, I hope we do have a challenging environment to the chief executive and be united with our scrutiny in making some graduated annual savings over several years. So I look forward to playing a full part in the overview and scrutiny process as a member of the overview committee, and making sure and warning the executive board that it is not just a joint executive board that goes forward to meet Boston Borough, that there are members of scrutiny therein with their recommendations that come forward out of the next few months when we get together to discuss this. So yes, there's a cautious welcome from here, but I am concerned again that we have jumped into this quite quickly. If we had known some of the alarm bells earlier, we would have been able to be more positive in our help towards you as an executive board and not be sort of batting at you at this particular time. So I think going right back to what Councillor Howard said right at the beginning of this debate, well said. I'm not going to repeat what it was, but in terms of where we go forward, let's now, as we understand where the vote is going to go, let's get overview and scrutiny kicking into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mossop. Councillor Makinson-Sanders, please.
I just want to reiterate how strongly I support the district councils. I think the thought that Lincolnshire County Council would take over the whole of a huge area is completely unthinkable. I can't think of anything I think they do particularly well. I think they're an absolute disaster in this area in particular. I think that locally we provide a much better service to our residents. Our poor and our vulnerable are served better by the district council, and we're far more effective at spending the money wisely and getting value for money for our residents. So I'm not against a merger. I'd like to have seen South Holland probably involved in it as well at the same time, but certainly not against it. And I support you 100%, no, 150% in support of the district councils, because I think they do a sterling job. And I'm dismayed at the thought that we may end up having a remote council where people really, really do not care about us folk in the sticks.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Marsh, please.
I've nothing further to add at this stage, Chairman. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Leyland, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It seems quite a while ago since we started off the substantive debate, and I'm going to try and remember the sort of squiggle through my notes of who spoke. I think there's some general points to make about the pace of this and the concern about consultation and the concern about the effect of residents. The reality is residents are keen to see their services delivered in the most efficient way possible with a good value for money council tax, and I think we provided that as a very well run organisation over the years, and that will continue. We are two distinct separate councils, and we will have ambitions and pushes to make sure that this alliance between us, strategic alliance, works well in delivering the services for our residents. And there's things that Boston can gain from what we do, and likewise we can gain from some of the good practice areas of what Boston does through their delivery. There was a question about, I think it was Councillor Horton, about the split based on population and the concern about costs. Well, we've had this tested by Eversheds, and the principles of what we're doing are found to be reasonable and secure and understood. In respect of the costs, we also share in that proportionality the gains. And if you look at South Holland, that was done on a financial input of what we could put in versus South Holland, and the proportions aren't incredibly dissimilar. We gain far more from that deal than South Holland does. And again, I would go back to the Campus Point, or PS2 as it now is, being a very successful entity and enterprise for this council. So I have no difficulty, and I do have an understanding of how those costs are split. I think Councillor Mossop made the same point about the concerns about that, but I'm quite comfortable about where we are with this. Councillor Makinson-Sanders, I think you had two bites of the cherry, so well done. In terms of where we need to get on this, I think it is the pace. If we derail this, and we've had the amendments, thankfully, but if we don't have pace, these things don't generally get delivered because there's too much introspection and negativity that can be thrown at these things. We are a council that wants to get things done for our residents. We have an ambitious investment plan for our capital across the district. And of course, we've got the advantage of having two towns funds within our area, which we want to see progress, and also the support we want to put in place for our market towns with the budget issues that Councillor Fry's identified, that we still have money for that, which is good. Councillor Smith, I think you mentioned, and some of the concerns were raised about how the unions were consulted. I think I've given you a full answer of that in the amendment debate. And again, and I know Councillor Martin has given her assurance about where all this is in respect of scrutiny. Again, I will give you my word that actually we will have a full scrutiny process once this is launched, and we go through the process of creating the management team and also looking at how we merge the services over the next 2 years. I think it will be a very considered process, and I think it will be good for both councils. I think we went on then to Councillor Mossop, and I'm very appreciative of your comments, Councillor Mossop, very considered as always, and take on board your concerns that were raised about this cost split. I think I've explained that already, and we've taken legal advice on that. But in general, once we make the decision tonight, it's in everyone's interest that we make this work, because if there's going to be a continual sniping about it and moving on as we go from here, we are going to be not doing our residents any good favours. We need to get on with it. And I think the scrutiny process, and Councillor Martin thankfully acknowledges, and I appreciate the acknowledgement, that we do listen to scrutiny. And we've made some good decisions in this council on the back of scrutiny recommendations. And I'm quite happy to continue that process. So thank you to Councillor Martin for her comments. That's all I've got to say, really, Mr. Chairman. I'm very appreciative now that we're about to vote.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Leyland.
Excuse me, Chair. My points haven't been asked. Councillor Cunningham.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Kennington. Yes, sorry, I've just found your piece of paper. You asked about the A16 and flood defence.
Yeah, I welcome any improvement, but I would like some clarity on what improvement.
Okay, no, quite happy to do that. In respect of what we're raising there, it is not necessarily that we're going to do those particular things. It's the principle of having a greater voice as an alliance rather than one voice. So those things that affect us, communication, access to roads, we can lobby more effectively. Now, you're quite right, it's a county council responsibility, and we will be better placed lobbying on that behalf, on our behalf with county council, and also in respect of looking out for our flood defence, which is a key issue for us in terms of getting confidence for investment. So it's the principle of it, not necessarily that we're going to focus on those particular issues, although they are two very important issues for us. It's the criticality of what argument we can make as two councils working together closely. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm quite happy to stop speaking and let you take the chair to deliver the vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Leyland. Over to you, Anne, for the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. So we're voting on the substantive motion. Councillor Terry Aldridge. Councillor Aldridge. Councillor Aldridge.
Gone to bed.
Shall we go back to him?
Come back to him again, Anne. Like we did.
Back to him. Councillor Andrews.
4.
Councillor Ashton is absent. Councillor Richard Avison.
4.
Councillor Stan Avison.
4.
Councillor Adrian Benjamin.
4.
Councillor Wendy Bowkett.
4.
Councillor Billy Brooks.
4.
Councillor Danny Brooks.
4.
Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
4.
Councillor Trevor Burnham.
4.
Councillor Sandra Campbell-Wardman. 4. Councillor Graham Cullen.
4.
Councillor Richard Cunnington.
4.
Councillor Mark Dannett.
4.
Councillor Colin Davey.
4.
Councillor Sid Dennis.
4.
Councillor Sarah Devereux.
4.
Councillor Colin Dickinson.
Abstain.
Predictable.
Councillor Dick Edgington.
Why?
4.
Councillor Stephen Eyre.
4.
Councillor Martin Foster.
4.
Councillor Richard Fry.
4.
Councillor William Gray.
4.
Councillor Chris Green.
4.
Councillor Adam Grist,
4.
Councillor Will Grover,
4.
Councillor Alex Hall,
4.
Councillor David Hall,
4.
Councillor Sandra Harrison is absent. Councillor Paul Reeves,
4.
Councillor George Horton,
Abstain. I'll say it again for Mr. Marsh. Abstain.
Councillor Tony Howard,
4.
Councillor Rosalind Jackson,
Abstain.
Councillor Neil Jones,
4.
Councillor Thomas Kemp,
4.
Councillor Steve Kirk, Councillor Kirk,
4.
thank you. Councillor Terry Knowles,
4.
Councillor Andrew Leonard,
Against.
Councillor Craig Leyland,
4.
Councillor Jill Makinson Sanders,
I think I'm going to reluctantly vote for it.
Councillor David Manjon,
4.
Councillor Graham Marsh,
4.
Councillor Fiona Martin,
4.
Councillor Helen Matthews,
4.
Councillor Steve McMillan,
Abstain.
Councillor Daniel McNally,
4.
Councillor Edward Mossop, Councillor Mossop,
My
Councillor
apologies.
Mossop,
Unpredictably, 4.
Councillor Claire Newman,
4.
Councillor Sarah Parkin,
4.
Councillor Julie Platt,
4.
Councillor Paul Rickett,
4.
Councillor Phil Smith,
4.
Councillor Jim Swanson,
4.
and Councillor Turton Levers is absent. I'll just come back to Councillor Aldridge. Can you hear me, Councillor Aldridge?
Yeah, I've woken up now. Yeah. Being consistent, I say against.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just check that my vote was taken, please, Councillor Leyland?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Confirm that.
Votes
Thank
for.
you. Yeah, thank you.
Wouldn't it be really mean if somebody said walkies now?
Thanks for that.
So you've got company, Rich.
She can't believe I'm still sat here. She wonders what's going on.
It's her bedtime. Yeah, right, William, you look quite happy in there.
Sorry, can I just remind colleagues to mute, because we're hearing your private conversations about going to bed. It's a bit odd.
Is actually not invited, Craig.
Sorry, Chairman. The result of the vote is 46 for, 2 against, 4 abstentions and 3 absent. So that was carried.
Yeah, okay, so that was carried. Okay, right, we move on to item 10, political proportionality. To approve the political proportionality in accordance with provision of section 1517 of the Local Government and Auditing Act 1989 and the Local Government Committees and Political Groups. Regulations 1990 regarding the council to review representation of each political group of committees as soon as practically after any change to the political membership. Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chairman. The report is as it stands. It's what we have to do when we have a change in membership from one party to another. And it is what it is, Chairman. I don't intend to go on about it too much. And we would be proposing Councillor David Mannion in the vacant position that we have for licensing. Thank you.
Okay, we're seconder.
Yeah, I'm pleased to second this and reserve my right to speak later if need be. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right. Councillor Neil Jones.
Suggest we move to the vote.
Yeah, that seems to be accepted. So over to you, Anne. We're going to the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Terry Aldridge.
For.
Councillor David Andrews.
For.
Councillor Tom Ashton is absent. Councillor Richard Avison.
For.
Councillor Stan Avison.
For.
Councillor Adrian Benjamin.
For.
Councillor Wendy Bowkett.
For.
Councillor Billy Brooks.
For.
Councillor Danny Brooks.
For.
Councillor Jimmy Brooks.
For.
Councillor Trevor Burnham.
For.
Councillor Campbell Wardman.
For.
Councillor Graham Cullen.
For.
Councillor Richard Cunnington.
For.
Councillor Mark Dannett.
For.
Councillor Colin Davey.
For.
Councillor Sid Dennis.
For.
Councillor Sarah Devereux.
For.
Councillor Colin Dickinson.
For.
Councillor Dick Edgington.
For.
Councillor Stephen Eyre.
For.
Councillor Martin Foster.
For.
Councillor Richard Fry.
For.
Councillor William Gray.
For.
Councillor Chris Green.
For.
Councillor Adam Grist.
For.
Councillor Will Grover.
For.
Councillor Alex Hall.
For.
Councillor David Hall.
For.
Councillor Sandra Harrison. Oh, she's absent. Councillor Paul Hibbett Greaves.
For.
Councillor George Horton.
Abstain.
Councillor Tony Howard.
For.
Councillor Rosalind Jackson.
For.
Councillor Neil Jones.
For.
Councillor Thomas Kemp.
For.
Councillor Steve Kirk.
For.
Councillor Terry Knowles.
For.
Councillor Andrew Leonard.
Abstain.
Councillor Craig Leyland.
For.
Councillor Jill Makinson Sanders.
Abstain.
Councillor David Manjon.
For.
Councillor Graham Marsh. Councillor Marsh,
Yep, sorry, 4.
Councillor Fiona Martin,
4,
Councillor Helen Matthews,
4,
Councillor Steve McMillan,
4,
Councillor Daniel McNally,
4,
Councillor Edmund Mossop,
4,
Councillor Claire Newman,
4,
Councillor Sarah Parkin,
4,
Councillor Julie Platt,
4,
Councillor Paul Rickett,
4,
Councillor Phil Smith,
4,
Councillor Jim Swanson,
4.
and Councillor Mel Turton-Levers is absent. Thank you.
Jill, will you mute your mic, please?
It came, sorry, I'm just going to tell you, it came up and asked me to unmute it. So I didn't know, I did as I was told.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. The other point is, I mean, I fully accept what Councillor Skinner says about the Chief Officer Employment Panel. I was put into the chair at the meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. Result is 49 for, 3 abstentions and 3 absent. That's carried. Thank you.
That's carried. Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you. Right, we now go on to item 11, Audit and Governance Committee Annual Report. To note the annual Audit and Governance Committee report following review by the Audit and Governance Committee. Councillor Paul Levitt-Green.
Yep, I'd like to propose the report to council for noting, please.
Right, thank you very much. Item 12.
Chairman, I think Councillor Jackson's got a hand raised on the item.
Right. Councillor Ross Jackson, please.
Thanks. I'd just like to highlight very quickly the importance on page 120 of hearing from property funds in our oversight of finance. It's an area of huge change for property funds at the moment, and hearing from them helps our audit. So I just want to emphasise that that's a very important strand that the Audit and Governance Committee carry out, and that we should continue to carry out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jackson. Item 12, the draft minutes of the Audit and Governance Committee. To note the draft minutes of the Audit and Governance Committee held on the 27th of May 2020. Councillor Paul Levitt-Green, please.
Once again, I'd like to propose the notes to the council, please. Ratification.
Thank you. So we go on to item 13, reports from scrutiny and policy panels. There are none. Item 14, motions on notice. There are none. Item 15, questions. Right. Question 1 is Councillor Leonard to Councillor Leyland. Have you a supplementary?
You'll be delighted to know I have no supplementaries to any of my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question 2, Councillor Leonard to Councillor Leyland. Have you a supplementary? No?
As I've just said, I have no supplementaries to any of my questions that are listed.
Okay. Well, question 3 was
Thank
Councillor
you.
Leonard to Councillor Leyland. Question 4 was Councillor Leonard to Councillor Leyland. Question 5 was Councillor Leonard to Councillor Marsh. Is that the same? No supplementary?
You've got it right.
Right. Question 6 is Jill Markin Sanders to Councillor Ashton. Have you a supplementary that he isn't here?
Well, as he's not here, I do have a supplementary, and he's invited me to give him a ring, and I'll sort it out with him on the phone, but probably not tomorrow, but one of these days. Depends where he's voting, actually, and how he's voting, when he can fit me in.
Can I just ask Councillor Neil Jones why he's got his blue hand up?
Yes, I'm 73 years old and life is just too short to sit here to listen to 16 questions to the council, which should have been answered by email or through a portfolio holder. Could you, as chairman, just ask the recipients of these multiple questions if they've got a supplementary, full stop, rather than wade through 16 questions?
I'm a bit younger than Neil, and I said,
well, they're all to different people.
Well, I suggest
Anyway,
you look at the Constitution then.
Question 7 is Councillor Mossop to Councillor Leyland. Have you a supplementary?
Well, yes, I have. In view of the great success of this meeting online and other committee meetings, do we actually need a council chamber? How about hiring Louth Town Hall?
I don't know what it was.
Have you got an
Mr. Chairman,
answer,
I'll happily provide a detailed response in writing. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Question 8 is Councillor Markinson Saunders to Councillor Chris. Have you a supplementary?
Yes, I have. I'm just going to apologise because I lost all my emails till about 5:30, and I had to get my son in to actually do something with the council computer. So anyway, Adam, I'm not convinced you wrote this answer, but I'm going to plough on. I'm depressed you think growth and prosperity comes by encouraging detrimental out-of-town ventures that we know will take its toll on towns like Louth. But please, can you reassure me and tell us backbenchers how we can stop this greed spoiling the heart of our community? I think you know the site we're alluding to, and I want to know how we can support you to stop what we fear might happen.
Thank you for the question, Jill. I think I got the gist of what you were saying. You came and went a little bit towards the end there, but you make a very good point. I think as we exit COVID and the current situation we're in, it's absolutely vital that we do everything as an authority to protect our market towns and the local economy that they support. So I would like to see that this council, through its various committees and functions, ensure that that's the case. And I think we need to look very long and hard at any planning application that comes in for anything that's in an out of town location, because town centres are going to need all the help they can get. So I'd like us to look at all policies that the council currently has, and as I say, carefully study any application as and when they come through the planning authority.
Thank you, and we're pleased to support you on that.
Okay, thank you. Question 9 is Councillor Markinson Sanders to Councillor Leyland. Have you a supplementary?
Yeah, Yeah, you'd be glad to know that I wasn't going to let it pass. Fine words, glorious generalisations, but sadly no timeline, a favourite word of Mr. Stevenson's, and no concrete proposals. When can our residents expect these details, please?
So, situation as it is, doesn't it?
Councillor, there's a lot of interference on what I'm
Yeah,
doing.
who's not muted?
I will happily provide you with a written answer if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay. Question 10 is Councillor Alton to Councillor Foster.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Foster.
Have
Can
you
hear me?
supplementary?
Yeah, you didn't give me a chance. Thank you, Councillor Foster, for your reply. I did get an email from you, and between me and you, that's quite sufficient. Thank you.
Oh, right, thank you. Question 11, Councillor Alton to Councillor Leyland.
Once again, I do thank the leader for his reply, and I do note his comments, and no doubt we'll take this on board. Hopefully, if the event arises again, but obviously, hopefully it doesn't. But thank you, Councillor Leyland.
Question 12 is Councillor Alton to Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. And I know it's a very difficult time for you with all the budgeting and whatever. However, I'm afraid I do not agree with your answer. Magna Vita, we did not agree a management fee. It was a fee. It was an agreement set up by the former leader, Councillor Stevenson, who sold us down the line. We are paying for fire curtains. We're paying to replace equipment. We are not paying for the management of the services. And I'm afraid this needs taken further. And in this day and age, when we're looking at reducing costs, this is where one cost must be reduced. Thank you, Councillor Fry.
Question 13 is Councillor Alton to Councillor Grist.
Thank you, Councillor Grist. I thank you for your reply, but I do not have a supplementary.
Thank you. Question 14 is Councillor Alton to Councillor Marsh. Do you have a supplementary?
Question 13. I apologise,
14. 14.
Sorry. No, I totally thank him for his reply. Thank you.
Right. Question 15 is Councillor Makinson Sanders to Councillor Bowkett. Do you have a supplementary?
No, but I just want to say thank you. That was the information I was looking for, and it was the quickest way to find it out. So thank you for providing me with it. It is very useful. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, question 16 is Councillor Leonard to Councillor Leyland. Do you have a supplementary?
As I said before, I have no supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you. At the end of the questions, exempt information, there's none. Item 17, the date of the next meeting. The programme date for the next meeting of the council will be Wednesday, the 22nd of July, 2020. Thank you very much to all of you for your attendance and sleep tight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we spoke about something back then.
Night, everybody.
Bye, Elaine. Thank you.
Let's leave.
Elaine,
Yes.
could you evict me, please? It's
Yes,
Councillor
of course
Cunnington.
I will.
Okay, goodbye. Thank you.
I'm seeing people I haven't
live
seen
stream.
tonight.
Oh, you need to swipe your
No,
screen across.
Yeah, but no, when I've got the thing down for the blue hands, it won't go across.
I think you've done very well, David. You
Yeah,
really
well
have.
done, David.
Well done.
Well done.
I'll try.
Hard job tonight. You've done a good job.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
It's a
and good
blooming
night.
hard job.
Good
Keeping
night.
us in order.